Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up this week's themes of gibberish band names, looking at a band that's just, they have one word and they just say it a lot. We're looking at pigs, 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 pigs. 7 times I counted, I made sure it was accurate. The track we're looking at is Reducer. I honestly have no idea what to think with this, so let's just dive into it, right? I really like the drummers. Well, not so much. Yeah, right there. The way that they're holding the sticks, it's a very loose grip for such an aggressive style. Okay. The bass is super chunky. Golly. Interesting decision to go with the. We'll talk about it later in the phrasing on this section. You know what's cool is despite how repetitive that is, we spent like 75% of that track with a single riff. It doesn't get boring for me in particular. I can't speak for anyone else, but I think there's something about stoner that just kind of works for me. It's the atmosphere of it. That's not to say that I wouldn't have enjoyed this with a little bit more variety in it, but just the emotional texture of the song just really worked. I didn't care what they were playing so much as just existing in this vibe. It's interesting. This isn't the only stoner song that, or yeah, stoner style that's worked for me lately. I've well, kind of given some spoilers here. Pretty sure Galpa is going to end up on my album of the year list, and that's basically what if Bjork made a stoner rock album, and like I just love it. I really do. Stoner rock's just working for me right now. Um, so yeah, that's just kind of bizarre because like I know this is not going to be a really lengthy analysis. There just isn't a lot of music here, but usually I walk away from this like, this was cool and this was cool and I enjoyed this, but it bounced off of me because I was ready for it to end halfway through the song, and that's just not my relationship with this first listen here. And I mean, that speaks volumes, I think, to uh, mindset and emotional state, mental state, all sorts of things that come into music. It's why sometimes when I listen to something the first time, it bounces off of me, and the second time, maybe it's my favorite album. Maybe it took me 10 years to get to that second listen, but I'm just like, this is exactly what I need right now. I didn't need it earlier, it didn't work for me earlier, but right now it's perfect. And it kind of sucks about this format. Everything's based off of the first listen, and I try to be as positive as I can and always pick out something to learn from it, but there's a lot of stuff that's bounced off of me that I just don't get a chance to get back to. We had that second chances week earlier this year, I think, where we revisited some of the stuff I was harsher on, and pretty much all of it I came back to with a more positive outlook. Not all of it worked for me on that second listen, but I understood it better. Sometimes it's all about how you're feeling, and a lot of repetition bounces off me, and maybe this would have 6 months ago, but today it really works despite it. I mean, this could really easily end up being in an unexpected fave like last week, because there's a lot of stuff in here that just normally doesn't work for me, and I enjoyed this. I don't know if I would put it like, top album ever, assuming the rest of the album would be similar to this, but it was very enjoyable to listen to for me. So with all this subjective stuff out of the way, though, let's dig into some objectivity. What is going on in here? We have a very slow guitar riff. There's basically it's a mix of whole or half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes. Not really looking at anything fast or technical. Sometimes we're even just playing the same note repeatedly with different spacings between when we attack. The drums are rather light, mostly keeping in with the beat. The bass is playing a simplified version of what the guitars are, pretty much hitting on the same accented beats, but not always playing some of the quicker hits. Um, and our vocals are more or less playing a variation of our guitar melody. It's not really doing anything to separate itself musically from this lead guitar riff. It's pretty much in the same vein. This idea takes up 75% of the track. Well, without the vocals, it's 75% of the track. The vocals do trade off their lead duty with the guitar occasionally. In fact, we get two guitar solos here in places where another vocal verse probably would have worked just as well. Almost as if to say that the vocals and the guitars are the lead instruments and they divvy up the time of being lead. The guitar solos, much like the riffs we have and the vocal melodies, is less of a spotlight for the instrument and just another instance of uh, leaning into this vibe and rhythm and melody we've already written. Um, and it's one of those cases where it's designed, it's kind of weird to isolate it as a guitar solo. That's what it is production wise. It has the spotlight in the same way that the vocals do. There's a lot of emphasis put on them. Even visually we shift over to that rather than getting the wide view of the band. There's a lot of things that tell me it's a solo, and that's caused me to use the phrase solo, but honestly it's just a melody shift. There isn't really anything about it that is solo-y. We just pass the melody on from one instrument to another. This isn't really a moment to show off. It's not really a moment to do, linear storytelling. It's just another opportunity, no different than our vocal melody, to lean into the atmosphere and compositional style that every instrument is already playing with. Just taking another shot at it, taking another stab. We already have this idea. What's something that would pair with it? How can we dig deeper into this atmosphere we already have? And thus, our guitar solo is also comprised mostly of half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes, holding out tones and spicing up things a little bit with these small rhythmic variations, but staying within the same range that the guitar has when it was doing the riff. We enter into our first big change then in what I think is maybe the bridge. We have this back and forth between the vocals and the guitar. They each get two runs. And then we enter this section, and it's basically where the previous section has mostly been a static idea. It's one riff. It feels like it's a static chord. We don't really change it. We don't raise up the riff and pitch or anything like that. Now we have two chords. We're going back and forth between them. One is a home or resolution style. The other one adds a bit of tension. And we go between this tense and relaxed vibe. Now, nothing else really changes, which is just, we don't have guitar tone changes. We don't speed up the song. We don't slow it down. We don't change range. A lot of our instrumentation is still in the same range it was before. Our bass continues to follow along with what the guitars are doing, just less rhythmically intricate. Our vocals continue to have this, well, we'll talk about this later with the production, but the vocals are not as front and center as I would expect for the style. They are a bit compressed, muted a little bit to fit better in with the sound sphere, the soundscape of the music rather than to stand out from it. Um, but yeah, we a new vocal line, new riff, and two chords. But sonically, nothing really changes. Still has that sort of sludgy, grimy, stonery feel to it all. It's all in the same octave that we were in before. There hasn't been a lot of movement, but there's been some minor change. Um, One thing I did pick up was that the vocals began to repeat a phrase. I'm not quite sure what's up with that. I'm sure we'll dig into that in the lyrics, but this is the first bit of repetition I've heard in the vocals. And it's a single phrase said over and over and over. And it was rising intensity. And I think it was in the middle because then we hit like another guitar solo or lead guitar melody. And then we hit the outro. And this was cool because we did this massive drop. We dropped in octave, in pitch, we dropped in tempo, and it felt heavy. Like putting on a hiking backpack. You know, you have the normal weight of yourself, what you've become accustomed to, and then you put on this 50-pound monstrosity and you feel that immediate weight, right? You have to get back to being used to that. That's what this felt like. It felt like taking on this massive weight, and it just drops the whole song, like putting something heavy in a car and just watching, the vehicle, like, drop and then, bounce back. The shocks or suspension or whatever start to, they account for it and all that. But you get that immediate drop before it recenters and finds its new stable norm. And it's wild just how much that's felt, because despite the changes we've had prior to this section, it's all mostly been the same. There is a very centered or homely feel about everything we've heard so far. There's been not much distance covered. We might have stepped out to our front yard, but we're still home. And this is the first step of the adventure. This is where things are like, oh, things are different. There's a change of scenery. And it accomplishes that through many ways. Like I said, pitch, tempo. Here's another neat thing, though, that happens here. The time signature doesn't change, but our phrasing does. We're still in 4/4. In fact, we're still looking at 4 bars of 4/4, which gives us 16 beats. But our phrasing is a 7-beat phrase and then a 9-beat phrase. It's asymmetrical. Something is off here where everything felt normal in a sense prior to this. Now it feels like we're moving into the next section just a hair bit too early, and we're restarting our phrase 1 beat early. We only made it to beat 7. Beat 8 should have been part of this, but instead beat 8 started it over. And so maybe we're expecting 7 beats again, and then we get to 7 and we keep going. Then we get to 8 and we're like, well, 8 was the norm before, and we keep going and we get to 9. Like, when is this going to end? And then beat 10 starts us back over, because beat 9 of that phrase was 16 altogether, 7 and 9. And so we have this element of rushing and then dragging and stretching, and then rushing and then dragging and stretching. And things just start to feel very off. We're not used to this anymore. Now this only lasts for 2 repetitions maybe before we get into a symmetrical groove. I think we end up even with a 1-bar phrase. So we're back to, 4-beat phrases, or sorry, a 4-beat riff with a 16-bar phrase. But we're now still slower. We might have found our footing in this new environment, but the weight hasn't been removed, and it continues to affect us more and more. And the song just slows down until we end with no drum section and just feedback, I think, from a guitar. It is a crushing weight that destroys the song, one that felt very comfortable to begin with. That's what I get out of the music. I'm going to hit some lyrics and see what I can figure out about this track, because the musical storytelling here is, at least to me, very clear. There is no ambiguity about what I felt listening to this, but I'm interested to hear, what they intended for it, and if anything lines up with their lyrical intentions as well. This is actually pretty neat. I'm not going to say I have a strong read on this, but, well, that and the fact that there's missing lyrics, I found like 4 sites, and all of them are missing lyrics in the same places, so people just copy pasting from all over the place. It seems to be a person trying to come to terms with an apathy that has been formed from a consistent undercutting of their passions. They seem to care very deeply about things, but whenever they put themselves out there or try to fix things or whatever, trying to get a positive impact through whatever their passion is, it ends up either backfiring or not working or nothing changes, anything like that. And they've become more apathetic to everything. They've begun to get shut down through this process. And we hear both sides of this. Our opening verse actually states this rather clearly. I don't care and I don't mind. We're weeds and it's fine. We're stuck here together. It's too late. To be clear, I'm scared, that's for sure. I care more than you know. There is this fear that they want things to change, but no matter what, they won't. And so part of them is just like, fine, we'll just accept reality. But there's this part of them that, people call them out on it. Like, you don't seem to care about anything. He says, no, I care more than you know. I'm so scared about this, but I also don't have the energy to fight for it anymore. And there's something so relatable to that. To just be so defeated. It's interesting. There's actually two times where there's repetition in the lyrics. I only heard the second, which is interesting. It states, I care more than you know. I like words, but I don't speak. I want reasons to breathe. I want air. I want air. I want air. He says it 7 times. It just happens to be the number of times pig is stated in their band name. Also, earlier, he states, I'm not here 7 times as well. 7 is a very important number to the band, or at least to the lyricist. As things start to get heavier musically, the lyrics are reduced to just 2 ideas. He says, I wanted to be alone, so I started to dig a hole. And we finish out the track with a repetition of ego kills everything. Now, I can't quite wrap up this idea of ego into the earlier reading that I have. But there is this component of killing everything. There is a feeling of utter defeat in this track, of being completely weighed down lyrically and musically and losing a bit of yourself. It's palpable in the sonic quality of the track. It's understandable in the lyrics. I don't know. I really dig the combination here of the music and the lyrics, though. Those are my thoughts, though, on Pigs is Reducer. This is where y'all come in. Let me know what you thought of this track. Did you enjoy it or not? Anything you'd like to add to what I stated or correct me on? Let me know down in the comments section. Above that, there is a description box, and in there is a link for Linktree. I'll take you to this menu right here, which has links for everything related to the channel. You can find multiple ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord community, and a link to my music, as well as many other links. It is a tree of links. If you're interested, go ahead and check that out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. Alright, we have 2 creator requests coming up next. Otherwise, we got an album review tomorrow. Pretty excited about it. I think for some reason, it's Cyborg Octopus, and I think I'm gonna like them for some reason. I have them filed away in my head as a band I've been anticipating, but I honestly have no idea what to expect with that one. Uh, we'll have a live stream on Sunday. It's the last live stream of the month. And then next week, we're slowing things down a little bit. I made a YouTube community post about it, but it's the winter break. Normally I take it off, but I've had a lot of breaks from unforeseen things earlier in the past like 4 months or whatever. So I don't want to take more days off. We're just going to lighten the load a little bit. So if you're interested in what that entails, like I said, community post about it. All right. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.